Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the North Carolina Literary Review's Poetry by North Carolina Expatriates. My name is Aaren Guzman, and I'm an editorial assistant with NCLR. Tonight's event is co-hosted by North Carolina Humanities, which has honored both NCLR's founding editor, Alex Albright, in 2021, and editor Margaret Bauer in 2018 with their highest award, the John Tyler Cadwell Award for the Humanities. I'd like to give major thank yous to Sherry Paula Watkins, Executive Director of North Carolina Humanities, and Melanie Moore Richardson, Development and Communications Manager of North Carolina Humanities, who are handling Zoom for us. I'd also like to give huge thank yous to my NCLR colleagues who have helped with planning and participating in this event. At this time, I'd like to invite Sherry Paula Watkins to speak.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sherry Paula Watkins and the Executive Director of North Carolina Humanities. Thank you, Aaren, and thanks to North Carolina Literary Review for inviting North Carolina Humanities to co-host tonight's event. We've been fortunate to work with NCLR many times. Thank you to the editor, Dr. Margaret Bauer, for this continued partnership. Margaret is also on the North Carolina Humanities Board of Trustees. Thank you, Margaret. North Carolina Humanities, we work to create and facilitate humanities programs that help North Carolinians make sense of themselves, their neighbors, and their communities. And I believe that reading, writing, and reflection are important parts of that discovery. If you haven't already, I encourage you to go to NCLR's YouTube channel and rewatch the creative nonfiction reading and conversation North Carolina Humanities and NCLR did together this February. You will be blown away. Our staff will put a link to that in the chat. It's April now, which is National Poetry Month, so it's fitting. Tonight we get to listen, reflect, and be inspired by poetry. Thanks again to NCLR for allowing us to be part of tonight's reading. If you want to learn more about North Carolina Humanities and how you can get involved with us during our 50th anniversary year, please go to our website, which my colleagues will also put in the chat. Happy reading, everyone. Back to you, Aaren.
Thank you for those words, Sherry Paula. Before we get on to our program, I would like to invite NCLR editor, Dr. Margaret Bauer, to share some North Carolina Humanities related news with us.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Aaren. And thanks to everyone who's here, all the readers, and a special thank you to North Carolina Humanities. I want to take this opportunity to announce to you all that NCLR has recently been notified by North Carolina Humanities that we have received a community research grant for teaching North Carolina literature, a project I've long wanted to pursue. We will be sending out a call for pedagogical submissions that involve introducing students to North Carolina writers, both in K-12 classrooms, working with Carolina K-12 on that, and post-secondary classrooms. This grant funding will help us to extend NCLR's mission to preserve and promote the state's rich literary history through student readers all across the state and beyond. There's certainly no reason a teacher living elsewhere wouldn't want to try out a good idea for introducing a fine writer to their students. Selected submissions will be published in NCLR Online, which is open access, so everyone can use these materials. And the creators will receive honoraria from the grant funds. So please check our website for a call for submissions coming soon. And thank you again, North Carolina Humanities.
Our reading tonight features some James Applewhite Prize winners and finalists who are expatriates of North Carolina. We're grateful to have in attendance the 2021 prize winner, Michael Loderstedt, along with 2017 second place and three-time finalist, Priscilla Melchor, 2018 finalist, Kevin Dublin, and two-time finalist and frequent NCLR reviewer, thank you, Marley Youmans. These poets' works have appeared in various print and online NCLR issues, and we'll introduce them more fully in a moment. First, some information about this contest. The James Applewhite Poetry Prize contest is open to any writer who currently lives in North Carolina, has lived in North Carolina, like our guest this evening, or uses North Carolina as a subject matter. There is no submission fee. You only need to be an NCLR subscriber or a member of the North Carolina Literary and Historical Association to submit. The 2022 James Applewhite Poetry Prize is now open for submissions and will close on April 30th. For more information, go to our website and click submissions, or see the link to the Applewhite Prize guidelines in the chat. If you submit or subscribe this week before Friday, send us an email to say you attended this event, and we'll send you a free copy of your choice between the 2020 issue, which features North Carolina expatriate writers, or the 2004 issue titled Ethnic North Carolina, which features an interview with Marley Youmans. Please indicate your preference. Find our email address in the chat. As we move forward this evening's program, I want to tell you that NCLR provides ECU undergraduate students the opportunity to serve as an intern on the staff, earning student credit hours while learning about working in publishing. One of our spring interns and honor student, Anna, will introduce our first readers.
We are fortunate to have virtually here tonight Priscilla Melchior, our 2017 James Applewhite second place prize winner and 3-time finalist. Besides NCLR, Priscilla's poems have also been published in Streetlight Mag and the Ekphrastic Review. Throughout her career, she worked at various newspapers in Eastern North Carolina, including Greenville's The Daily Reflector. She retired to Highland County, Virginia in 2011 and has won several awards from the Poetry Society of Virginia. Let's welcome Priscilla to the virtual mic as she reads some of her NCLR poems.
Thank you, Anna. I'm going to read 3 poems today, of very different poems, but the first one I'm going to read is called Confederate Memorial Day. And it really kind of blew my mind when I saw the day that we were going to have this reading, because the actual date for the original Confederate Memorial Day was April 26, 1866. And so here we are on the anniversary of that day for the poem of a parade I remember from my childhood. Confederate Memorial Day, April 1958. Even the mules seemed tired, every bit as exhausted as the old men who drove the wagons, gray as the uniforms they wore to plod down Nash Street, heads bowed, solemn, righteous. Children followed the parade, romping, teasing, summoned by the marching commands, the clop, clop of feet, utterly unaware of the reason for such a rare display of flags and guns, this march for soldiers in a cause long disgraced. Few even paused to watch as they passed. Only the young would follow across town, giggling, dodging that which mules left behind, half interested until at last the procession came to a halt at the graveyard, where faded headstones formed a battalion of memorials to men who took up arms against their country and called to their aging sons and grandsons to resurrect the past, cover it with a veneer of honor and pride, and ignore the irony of taps as it lifted on the April air and drifted over the hill. This second poem is more a sad commentary on the way my mind works. It's a bit of nonsense, so you can have a good time with it. Circumlocution. I'm no student of Latin, but I'm sure that buried deep in the tombs of that dead tongue are heretofore unknown classifications of words that make onomatopoeia shut its vowely mouth to jingle, boom, and clang no more. Consider, for instance, those which contain the seeds of what they actually mean, like benign, which sprouted its own curling, silent tumor, the G, for no medically etymological reason, or aggressive, which attacks with double-barrel consonants, proving that Mr. G is not really harmless at all. Then there are the words that look like what they are, a visual category, if you will. Parallel, or avert your eyes, boob. Even church. I was told as a child that the word is what it is. You are in church. See the steeples on either end? I lie in bed at night and think of these things, linguistic lullabies, misdirections from words I want to forget, cancer, death, war. I search for dreams in darkness, escape to the melody of language, anaphora, 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 amen. And this final poem is written from a memory of our little house on Craytuck Sound in eastern North Carolina. Summer dawn. The sun, still searching for its magenta mask, hasn't climbed from beneath the outer banks, but word of its coming has chased the darkness to gray, and Craytuck is yet slick water. Silence, save crickets and chattering birds, hangs like drifting fog until we hear the whine. Soon there is another and another. Now a chorus of outboards sings across the glassy surface, skimming off to the distant narrows. We are still abed these mornings, but we hear them, fishermen in their wooden boats, out to claim another day. Drowsily, we follow their song until the whine fades to the far off and lulls us back to the cool of a linen pillow and the sleep of an August dawn. Thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla, for that amazing reading. And to our audience, please note that you can purchase 2017 and 2018 back issues, which include Priscilla's poetry. Please find a link to our U-Store in the chat. This would be a great time to complete your set of NCLRs. All back issues are available for purchase, and $2,000 of our ECU budget is reliant upon event and back issue sales. We'll go ahead and admit that in these COVID times, we've not sold a lot at events, so your purchase of back issues would be a great help to us. Another opportunity for ECU students, in this case, graduate students like our moderator, Aaren, is to serve as an NCLR editorial assistant. And in fact, our next reader was just such a student when he was at ECU several years ago. Kevin Dublin is a 2018 finalist in the James Applewhite Prize, and his poem Divorce was published in the NCLR 2019 print issue. Kevin is the author of the chapbook How to Fall in Love in San Diego, which was published by Finishing Line Press in 2017. Kevin is currently living in San Francisco, where he is the director of the Elder Writing Project, a community-based outreach program of the Litquake Foundation. He also serves on the board of the Bay Area nonprofit Quiet Lightning and curates the Living Room reading series and salon, a space for intimate poetry performances, ideas, and conversation about difficult community topics. He holds an MFA from San Diego State University, an MA from ECU, where he was selected as the department's most outstanding graduate student when he graduated, and a BA and BFA from UNC Wilmington. His poetry has appeared in Rogue Agent, Menacing Hedge, Poetry International, The San Franciscan, Syzygy Magazine, The Cincinnati Review, and more. Kevin is a Writer Studio Ralph Dickey Scholar, and he's currently finishing a full-length manuscript with the generosity of the San Francisco Arts Commission. Welcome, Kevin.
Hello. Thank you for that introduction. That was beautiful. I think it's great to and wonderful work. So I love hearing your voice. I'm going to begin with the poem Divorce, which is, as mentioned, in the 2019 issue. So Divorce. He caches good judgment in the same bag as love for his enemy. Reach for one and grab the other. Disorder is the source of many mistakes, the last of which was simply loving. The warped reflection of face in the doorknob covered by hands, closing a room emptied of its dark corners. Full moon glow washes through windows, the whole floor, with no furniture and only memory of shadow. Bars of a crib against a far wall. Crawl of static through monitor. Scrapbook pages cry cut and turned over. Now just freeway whoosh, scratching, screen mesh. His first step, frictions into the long hallway, walls closer than when he entered, ears pierced by the needle silence, a heavy ring, fault, divine, and a crow's call, or maybe it's less. When he empties his bag, he'll place each item with more care. And so that's divorce, and that's kind of a leaving poem, or an exit kind of poem. And this poem, Origin, was written in as part of a project called West Oakland in West Africa. We're paired with paired with writers in Nigeria for that section. And so this is written. The first line from this is, we were exchanging. The last line of the previous of your poet partner's last line will become your first line. So this is with Ifeanyi Chukwu of Lagos. This is called Origin. Intoxicate minds of all who lipped them, says my cousin. Or was it my brother? Or was it another, or anyone at all? I come from a place where memory slips as easily as fingers across a silk dreadlock head wrap. I come from loblolly pines lining the highway, from the taste of smoke from a backyard barbecue even when you don't eat meat. I come from train whistles and routine rumble shaking humid bedroom between evening Junebug songs and a radio tuned to Foxy 107, 104. Gray fox, squirrel, flying squirrel, white-tailed deer that call this land home. Land green with grasses, with cotton and tobacco fields ancestors would work. And golden mud they would walk across as much as they would swim in. The Noose, a river that the Nusiak people once tended. The Noose, a river my father learned to swim in his youth as much as what he barely escaped. The Noose, now polluted with decades of hogwing, thousands of nitrogen-sick fish sunbathe along shores. I come from the earth, like seedlings radical work to claim March sun and say, this is my light. Have you ever seen a yellow daffodil open up? I come from exodus and bloom, from searching for the difference between to heal and to cure, from a 40-year-old pregnant after another miscarriage, from neurodivergence and beginning anew, from the kunk of skateboard wheels over sidewalk cracks on Wilmington and Greenville nights and afternoons, head bobbing between headlights behind shrubs. I come from the Mars dust-toned gleam of a street drummer's skin in the sun, from the pattern in a mother's skirt as she leads her toddler to dance to the beat on Market Street in San Francisco, from the sun greeting somewhere behind fog and Bay Bridge expanse. I come from a nod to every black man I pass, from Brian and Bill in San Francisco to Telegraph Ave and 18th Street at Cafe Van Cleef in Oakland. From a year of pandemic growth, untwisted to lock fit together, 10 years which begin with Miss Angie, Oakland's finest loctician, and end in hands that first braided in Senegal. I come from an 03 extending beyond 60 seconds at the end of a digital clock when the police pull me over. From two officers' hands over holster as a murder of crows scatter from lampposts like a dark dandelion blown by exhale in summer wish with a gin. I come from a place where making a living means more than fighting for rights, and it was designed to be that way. Like a cypress tree with roots deep in dark swamp, it's hard to resist when humans prioritize survival. I come from laughter and long embraces from aunties, from the rustle of a few dollars from a soup pocket into a collection plate as you brought me from a mighty long way, tenderly escaped smiles of the alto section of choir. From look to your neighbor and say, neighbor, I said that I want you to say neighbor, he brought me from a mighty long way. So one more poem, and this is, it's called Each Night in Elegy, and it is for my great aunt, Cereus who passed me. Was born, actually, I was born July 23rd, 1933, and passed, and is now, returned to the universe November 27, 2017. Each night, an elegy. Each day I come and I move toward some climax and have faith in an ending. This day, Another day gaslit by a nation. This ending, a mouth finishes gnawing off its own leg to exit a glue trap. Blood slick smears linoleum, pulp like a memory. Lover, when lying on our backs in bed and when no other parts of our bodies touch, don't mind my foot hooking around your ankle. I'm grounding to fetch silence beneath cacophony. Scratch of ocean wave against beach from white noise machine and breezes sneak through window weathering tape. I love isolating it. You're breathing. The long and heavy inhale, exhale, which never seems to end, tied to another inhale. Each night, distant honks drown out by hum of lamps dropping streetlight. Incandescent buzz becomes Embarcadero on-ramp whoosh. A Honda Civic push into wind, exiting the drift from behind a semi-truck turns into the waves of my sleep playlist on low. Finally, I can focus on your heartbeat. With each faint thump, I know my heart pumps more slowly. Muscles unflex from their work and loosen. It's like the brain does a plank above the body, starts arranging the day and traces memory. The surface of my gums raise from heavy flossing, location of a clothing receipt misplaced in that space as I remember the photo I came across today. My mother's aunt and I in our only photo together. You took it. You met her the way you could never meet my mother, alive, though cancerous, she smiled. Still, being alive, she grinned with that curve of upper lip, always bent in, ready to say grace. I'm so grateful she taught me to believe I was handsome by simply saying it. Even after that 7th grade fight with busted lips from a bully who kept calling me green and pulling my shirt. Dear Auntie, your smile was the same after a well-sung hymn, after some well-worded advice and a rhetorical, huh? How many ways can we grow through the power of repetition? I was listening, intently moved by you at the semi-truck tires on the freeway. Where have you gone? My last memory of you asking if I could visit while you lie in hospice as I exited a BART train in the city 3,000 miles away. Now I'm on the margin of sleep, noticing my partner's foot twitch. I'm breathing more slowly and my heartbeat matches hers. For the few seconds I'm awake, we keep the same time. I wonder if we all simply move in the same direction. The young heiress who believes the bay is a meritocracy. Ocean tides rise to become more ocean. The galaxy tumbling through intergalactic way. The universe rotating and expanding. Aunt Cereus closing her eyes for the final time. We can't stop moving, any of us. We have traveled from some universal atoms throughout time and space to end up here in human until we make it to the next place. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for that exceptional reading. If you'd like to read Kevin's poem Divorce, you can purchase the NCLR 2019 issue, which features North Carolina African American literature. We are also fortunate to have virtually here tonight Marley Youmans, a 2019 and 2015 finalist. She is the author of 15 books of poetry and fiction, including most recently the 2019 poetry collection, Blood, the Book of the Red King, and the 2020 novel, Cereus and the World of Wonders, which was reviewed in NCLR Online 2021. Marley was born in South Carolina, grew up in North Carolina, among other places, and now lives in Cooperstown, New York. She is a frequent NCLR contributor with both her own poetry and writing reviews of other authors' books, and she has been the subject of 2 interviews, first in NCLR 2004 and another in NCLR Online 2020. Marley graduated from Hollins College, now University, Brown University, and UNC Chapel Hill. She has won the Farrell Sams Award and the Michael Shara Award, both for fiction, and she has been a finalist and a silver winner for the Book of the Year Award from Forward. Let's welcome Marley to the virtual mic.
Thank you for that. People who know my poems know that I really like to frolic in meter and rhyme. But the 3 that I'm going to read tonight look very free on the page. They are, however, influenced by parallelism of the King James Bible, and also by Yoruban praise poems. And these are from a manuscript called Praise, which I haven't really done anything with yet, but they are poems about people, things, places. The first one I'm going to read is called Night Blooming Cereus, and it is named after the name of a photograph by Sally Munger Mann. And this is one of Sally's photographs that has been somewhat controversial. In fact, just this very day, I put a note on Facebook about the upcoming reading with an image of Night Blooming Cereus and was immediately put in Facebook jail for 29 days. It's a photograph of Sally Mann's daughter, Jessie. It's a partial torso that kind of goes up, cuts off around the chin, and she has flung around her neck the stems and flowers of a night blooming cereus. So it mentions Sally and also mentions Garcia Lorca along the way, his trio with Earth Spirit, Angel, and Muse. Night blooming cereus, painted with fragrance as on some other night dabbled with mud or stippled by riverweed, steady with the great slap of scent that holds the torso upright, the already yielding blossoms cool on the landscape of skin and nipple, all woman flowering yet to be. Those ballerina bell skirts, loose and interrogated by the jaws of insects, dangling from the great vegetable torque, lying wide around the child's neck, its eye-luring arc of twisted stem neither more nor less lovely than the lit curve of the girl's upper lip. The petals that once stirred in the large tranquility of moon and starlight are shaped like Japanese tea whisks made from fresh bamboo, the fragrant queen of the night, a mixture of sweetness and subtle notes, faintly fragrant with powder, earth's matcha, faintly fragrant with angelic stardust, faintly fragrant with musing moonlight, moon, smell of tarnished silver and lavender cheese. And also here is the same unticking stillness, the same split second of flower grace, the same purity washed in dew, the same reflective beauty that took 7 years to achieve, the child muse, born 7 years back with starlight coming out of her mouth, the royal body sluicing from out of time into time, eternity glistening on her flesh like a second skin of moonshine. Soon the child's body will be a river, her already lifelong limbs shining in the midst of the dusk and earth, scattered with confetti of petals and sepals of Cereus, all that virgin glow of flower, torn and spent. All this I praise, the flowers of night, the southern dirt princess, the middle child, Jessie, the eye hungry for wholeness, the work of strong fingers, strong hands, the rowing, the pulling toward moon, the silver gelatin image swimming in night, the body and the blossoms, taking shape in liquid, in dark, in secret, a kind of baptism, a kind of salvation, something snatched out of the endless chaotic rain of colors, a kind of burning in the blood, a kind of earth spirit swerving toward our faces. And all of these, the dream of Sally Mann, who I remember barely, long ago in school, quick and dark-eyed, already a Caesar of pictures, a poet, a player with words. Now she has become something else, has gone into the lunar fields, has fetched back the light and dark petals and the fragrance of skin married to flower, has fished, sieved, netted these things for us, from out the welter, the fireworks, the time rain of images, questing on foot and on horseback, going adventuring, determined to charge the goal without the least divine help, yet meeting with a Lorcan trio in the water meadows, demanding from them a blessing, The angel, all fire-veined and adrift in grace. The muse, all thought and longing for shapeliness. The fey earth spirit, duende, glimpsed from the eye's corner or heard within, singing, beating a tune in the blood. A song about goblins and sprites and unexpected death. A song that flings a night blooming Cereus around a naked child. A song calling us to be rivers and to thrum with the pulse of salt seas, mapping the branching veins of us in its dark light, gleaming in every cranny and corner of the body. A song that threatens ultraviolence, that emanates ultraviolet, shining its black light onto our little tributaries, our capillaries and cells, fluorescing the minerals of us, singing about the ancient powers of motherhood and petal flesh and the risk of childbed and after, the promised girl child who will in time destroy, is destroying the queen, her mother. Oh, this murderous, longed for girl child with her serious flesh that is white, with her lips that are blood, with her hair as black as the black in the grain of an ebon window frame at which a queen sits leaning, sewing, pricking her finger till the drops of blood mar the snow drifted on the windowsill. In this way, with a trio of helpers, duende and angel and muse, the woman we call Sally Mann, we cannot know her, snared and jarred for us, the quickly passing hour of the Cereus, its beautifully failing blossoms, its Reina de la Noche dance skirts, its astonishing copia, a gift of short but intense abundance, now and forever always, sleeping in fragrant peace on the breast of her child, the child less quickly passing, less frail in duration than night blooming flowers, yet passing surely away, O little child, as do we. Next poem is about an object, and I have brought it with me. Here it is. It is a paperweight. I have a number of paperweights, and this one has beautiful green ground with trees growing out of it, spring trees. And the poem is called Spring Tree Egg. Little world strewn on a table, lampwork flowers and berries sealed in orbs, lampwork root people creeping under glass ground, tangled in the lampwork curls below the flowerings, crane like a fish flying against deep blue, arbutus with leaves mined by insects. Among the paperweights, you, solid in my hand, the size of a large Bombay mango, ovate, oblique, green with a red blush. The earth inside the egg deep, a rich color near malachite, beautifully detailed with tiny mottle and swirl. The outer glass encasing the delicate glass trees, 3 that make one canopy, of petals the color of redbud blossoms, of leaves the color of spring, a veil thrown over sinuous branches. You are lovely, egg of petals, and I think you must be a world of cherry trees. I would have said redbuds, save that your blossoms are interspersed with leaves that are also like flowers. Your roots are visible in the malachite earth, small flowerless canopies, root branches rejoicing in malachite, and on the smooth base is writing, incised and curving, C. Richardson, the name of the woman who dreamed, made this little world of malachite with its fairy canopy. Last night, I dreamed of walking inside you, spring egg, under the C. Richardson trees, though the world outside my window glass is deep and white with crystal. Little world of blossom and root, you are useless in the best possible way, with the uselessness that says creation is as lovely as stars and streams, telling us that even though a young woman was beaten, her body burned by men, an innocent woman, and this very day, her body shouldered by women to the raw, shoveled grave on the other side of the world. Even though this creation maintains its loveliness as if evermore riding into the spring, helpless against all human desecration, but stainless and sweet. And my last one is in homage to what must have been my favorite book as a small child, Alice in Wonderland. And it's set in a time when my family had moved to Gramercy, Louisiana. It mentions Carol or Dodgson, and that's about all you need to know. It mentions Jairus, whose 12-year-old daughter was raised from the dead in the Gospels. Alice. And it has my childhood garden, which was cucumber vines and moonflowers, which were planted in a garden of sugar slag from a refinery. Alice. When the cucumber soared into the live oak tree, vines flying up from sugar slag, when the moonflowers vied with the moon in the branches, when miniature towers and cities spired under our house on piers, I fled in the sunshine with Alice. At night, I flopped on my belly with her books, poring over the big-eyed pictures, longing for the dormouse or the dodo, bird with the figure of a matron and a name like a Dododeca Dodgson stammer. All of us needed the new place with its crawfish castle under the boards, with the gray, red-bugged beards of the trees, with the plated monsters under False Lake, with the shrimp clenching and skittering in the dazzle of rock pools. We had been through too much. We had met a ruthlessness so dire it approached a black region of magic. We had strewn red and white roses inside a cut in the earth. We had learned that even a child can go out like a candle, like the passing dream of a red king, hanging there for a time like a ghost before departure, dissolving into the air like a Cheshire smile. What did I know? Everything, nothing. I was going on insufficient facts, 3 years old and already knowing that I could clasp nothing for keeps, bewildered at sea, going on and not knowing, going and knowing, a bad rhyme. It was easier to play with Alice. It was easier to fly through the mirror or tumble down a burrow than to fathom grown-up replies, all that reeling, all that writhing. Easier to hold the hand of a child who mastered the red and white roses, who made life a game of chess or cards, who walked around the Red King and never woke him. She had been under the ground. She had come back again. She was a miracle, a paper sister who had mastered the art of resurrection, careless and easy, a sister made out of words, who led me to the riddle of a writing desk, the pen made from a raven's feather and ink of ichor, mythic blood, or perhaps merely the watery seepage from a wound, who pointed and said to remember, who said to me, this is how to go. This is how you climb away, run away, find a way, write a way back. Alice, little Alice, if not for you, how could I have walked under boles and limbs of towering okra, or seen that the moon is only the widespread mouth of a flower? How could I have known that under False Lake slept a creature I could draw by a filament up from his weird greenish dreams? How could I have dwindled to be curiously small, so that I rambled the crawfish castle, merging with the damp and the soil? How else could I have become a flower, a pawn, a queen, a riddle, a smile, floating and basking in the outstretched glory of an infinite summer's day? Alice, all these years, and I am still big or small by turns, still glimpsing the world, flash from macrocosm to microcosm, still testing every mirror with the compressive force of my hand, still trusting in shifts and no absolute hardness, still mad about your daughter of Jairus trick, your moxie and mettle, your push onward and inward, your big eyes that see every little thing, your adventures under the ground. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful reading, Marley. You can purchase the print issues that feature Marley's poetry and another interview besides the online links that we've posted in the chat. This is a great time for you to purchase back issues. Next up, we have the winner of our 2021 James Applewhite Poetry Prize, who happens to be an ECU alum too. Michael Loderstedt is Professor Emeritus of State University, where he taught printmaking and photography. His recent manuscript, The Yellowhammer's Cross, received a 2020 Ohio Arts Council Fellowship in Nonfiction Literature. His work has been published in Neighborhood Voices and the Muleskinner Journal, and he has written for The Land. Michael's visual art can be found in the public collections of the Cleveland Museum of Art, the Cleveland Clinic Foundation, and the Akron Art Museum, among other venues. He has completed international art residencies in Belgium, Germany, among other places. Michael is the director of Photocentric, Cleveland's contemporary gallery dedicated to presenting new works in photography. This poet and artist grew up on the Outer Banks, a region that continues to inspire his art and poetry. Please welcome Michael Loderstedt.
Hello, everyone. So, thank you, and we're going to read one piece without accompaniment and then play two with. I also want to introduce you to Bruce Edwards, who's going to accompany me on cymbal and clarinet. So, the first poem I'm going to read is called Why We Fished, which tries to answer the question of why I spent so much time with a fishing pole in my hands. In the corner of every boy's room sat a box of hooks, various sizes, some rusty, leaden sinkers, bankers, pyramids, stamped with ones, twos, and threes, fours for heavy gales, jerk jiggers, mirror lures, Hopkins, some wire leaders, snap swivels, waiting, ready to go. Maybe a cast net in a plastic pail, and your pole gleamed in the corner, two-piece to fit in back of car for the long ride to the inlet. We fished instead of homework because we'd seen the reruns. Gilligan's Island, Beverly Hillbillies, Marianne or Ginger, we'd chosen, whipping the long silver line out over foamy breakers. The kinfolk said, move away from there, but we never did. Instead, we fished. We fished for the stories, the albacore that swam through your legs, the heron that followed you down the beach eating all your catch, the doormat flounder you lost, his two bug eyes staring up, taking your lure and his grin, your lies stretching out across the sand and back under the waves. We fish for our mothers and cornmeal, egg wash, and the smell you can truly never wash away. Your red hands, two mullets, folded under a pillow each night, the bed moving slowly back and forth, shells tumbling along. We fished because we had to, our lives grown too big for our little houses. We fished to be away, to feel each bump and guess, scratching for something larger than this place, this lot. So the next piece we're going to perform, and it's titled The Eye. And, when I was a kid, we were really excited about hurricanes because it meant something changed and something was new. So we would go play outside in hurricanes. I should mention, I was raised by wolves. So The Eye. How many warm nights I'd lie awake, listening to waves crashing into troughs, a rising hiss and falling softly, always beckoning. I am here, I am always here, this unwavering sea. I never thought you'd come for us, breach thin dunes and lift this house from its blocks. Even as winds roared and beds shook, oak branches slamming their fists all around us. A heavy silence fell when the eye passed over. The sky, a pale yellow. Children wandered the tangled yard, lost like drunks, waiting for another wind to switch and blow us back inside. We pulled groaning nails from boarded windows and drained the tub as lights flickered back. Pots on the stove, water salted. The broken bay tree gave leaf to our unholy sauce. Outside, the sound of many hands clapping. The seas, distant applause. So we'd like to do one more, and our last one is entitled Memory of Wales. One of the great, or maybe in addition to the return of the bald eagle, is that whales are now starting to return to their migratory paths along the Outer Banks. But when I was a kid, you never saw a whale, so this is a little bit about that. So. One second. All right, here we go. A whale's memory lasts 100 years. It may take longer to forget the brutality once piled in wooden boats, coils of rope, sharpened steel, all rowing furiously to catch passing pods. Why didn't they fight back? Crush us with one mighty swipe of tail. Instead, they swam further from shore, and still we chase them from Hatteras to Nantucket. We light our cities with petroleum now. We never saw whales passing our little island during daylight. But walking along shore on still nights, you might hear a watery exhale from distant blowhole, or fin slap under cover of the sea's darkness. Whales gliding past, whispering old hunt songs to calves. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for sharing your work with us. Remember that you can read Michael's Applewhite Prize poem by subscribing to NCLR. The 2022 issue is due out midsummer, which goes to press a week from yesterday, in fact. Find subscription information at the link in the chat. Feeling inspired to submit? The 2022 James Applewhite Poetry Prize is now open to submissions. The deadline is April 30th. Also, we'll send anyone here tonight who subscribes and or submits to NCLR over this weekend a free copy of your choice between the 2020 issue, which features North Carolina expatriate writers, or the 2004 issue, which features an interview with Marley Youmans. Don't forget to email us proof of subscription and tell us which issue you'd like us to send. At this time, I want to introduce a very special guest, another North Carolina expatriate, Jeffrey Franklin, who lives in Denver, Colorado, but has continued to read poetry for NCLR, serving as poetry editor for over 20 years now, even though he started teaching at Colorado University, Denver in 2001. We celebrated Jeff's latest poetry collection when we lay down all last week with poetry readings across North Carolina, starting here at ECU. He's just returned home and yet agreed to join us tonight. So to show our gratitude, we'll send you a free expatriate issue just for buying Jeff's book. Find information in the chat and then send us your receipt to claim your free issue. Jeffrey Franklin grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee. His BA is from UNC Chapel Hill and his MFA and PhD are from the University of Florida. He has written 2 scholarly books in Victorian literature and between and after them, 2 poetry collections. His poems have also appeared in many literary journals, including Arts and Letters, Crab Orchard Review, and Hudson Review. One of the poems in his first collection received the Robert H. Winter Memorial Award from the Poetry Society of America, and his poetry has appeared in Best American Poetry. Jeff has served as NCLR poetry editor for more than 20 years, and the editor notes that his work of reading and commenting on poetry submissions, the very rare poetry editor to do so, is entirely voluntary, a gift to NC poets. And now I get to hear him read some of his own poetry. Jeff.
Thank you, Anna. Hello, everybody. You know, my new collection, Where We Lay Down, you can see the cover art behind me. It's by my father. The book contains 6 poems set in North Carolina, even though Judy and I have lived in Colorado for over 20 years now. So you can tell that there's a piece of Colorado in my heart, or vice versa, a piece of my heart in Colorado, in North Carolina, rather. I'm going to start with a poem that is in 2 sections, and both of the sections are set in North Carolina, and both of them were written in response to real advertising signs that we saw, the first of which Judy and I saw while driving through Greensboro on I-40. And when we saw it, we kind of went, wow, what's that about? So the title for the 2 sections is Commerce and Gender in the New South. And the first one's title is Gentleman's Club and Exotic Car Wash. Yeah. Freeway billboard, Greensboro, North Carolina. And I use the word gentleman in this poem in scare quotes. The gentlemen lounge in smoking jackets and ascots, while girls come out in thongs to soak their bumpers. Loinclothed thugs parade leopard mascots, and the bar is tended by Polynesian drummers. Huge spiraling brushes lash the proffered buttocks of girls who come out in thongs to soap the bumpers. See-through slickers, Wellingtons, and Gore-Tex socks are de rigueur for waitresses who serve with French polish, as huge spiraling brushes lash their proffered buttocks. Every make and model, Balinese to Polish, winks the maitre d'. Bondage, wax, and mudguards are de rigueur for waitresses who serve with French polish. They'll detail your interior for Visa or MasterCard, clean you all the way down to the dipstick. winks the maitre d', bondage, wax, and green cards. Exotic for girls who share a smoke and a lipstick before they clean you all the way down to the dipstick. You gentlemen lounging in smoking jackets and ascots while loinclothed thugs parade paint-spotted mascots. And the second section of the poem, also a real sign. In case you don't know, Pullen is a chainsaw manufacturer. And the title of the poem is Barbara's Beauty Shop and Chainsaw Repair. Storefront sign, Greenville, North Carolina. Barbara, known as Bob, does perms and tune-ups. Big chrome scissors dual and Art Deco chainsaw in the center of the shop. Nexus headshots and pinups from Pullen logging calendars lend a raw pastoral motif. It titillates the ladies from the church. Big chrome scissors dual and Art Deco chainsaw and spark plugs serve as curlers in a pinch. Just a minute, hon, while I degrease, calls out Max. It titillates the ladies from the church to guess what cup jocks, shoulder pads, and falsies are squeezed into whose oil-stained jeans and plaids. Just a minute, hon, while I degrease. Techno-chic teens drift in at dusk for fright fads. That blue liquid's two-stroke. You're soaking in it, quips Sammy the manicurist in oil-stained jeans and plaids. At the shop with Nexus headshots and logging pinups, Barbara, call me Bob, does perms and tune-ups. That blue liquid's two-stroke. You soak in it while they fashion a brand new Southern man. She's it. I'm just going to read one more. And this poem is titled Living Right. Where I come from, what they call living right most often means no liquor and no sex, except what's sanctioned by the state of marriage, and only then with hurried indifference, plus regular appearances at church. Only men need worry about living right, since women had gotten themselves or been stuck minding the store of moral goods and notions, and as far as men could tell, forgotten how to live wrong. And so, naturally, such men, resenting women for the only power they'd given them to exercise, and guilty for their aversion to living right, wrested a counter definition of living right from the margins of socially acceptable behavior, according to which they failed to love the children the women had in their minds forced upon them, and took to the woods where they might exercise a purgative prerogative to kill, followed by heavy drinking, during which, and usually while pissing side by side, gazing up at a bleary moon together, they'd in an epiphanic gush concur that this was goddamn right, living right. So this morning, when our house guest said, "You folks sure know how to live right," I paused. Surely not the Southern brimstone version, and not its sexist doppelganger either. not the living right that characters in films affect and their actors imitate, of driving 50 bucks, of smoking 50 buck cigars, driving sports cars faster than the speed of self-inflation until the cancer or the smash up gets them, and not the new age fix of cheating death via a regiment of yoga classes and fat-free, chem-free, taste-free reinforcements. Though, true, we'd served him farmer's market fare, stir-fried in ginger sauce the night before. If what he meant was wine for taste, laughter spilling in waves around a room of friends, stories that each retelling deepens, and sex, if less often, then less hurried, if more honest, then hotter for it, if sometimes playful, then sometimes reverential, for close enough on a Sunday morning to church. And if, as I'd expect, all this regulated by a love of work that's good, midway between the Buddhist middle way and middle class protesting conformity, then hell, let's puff a 50-cent cigar and go for a spin in the station wagon, honey. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Next up is Peter McCook, Distinguished Professor Emeritus of ECU and former professor of Michael Loderstedt. He's not an expatriate, but rather a North Carolina immigrant from New London, Connecticut. But given that he once taught our prize winner many years ago, we invited him to join us. Until 2006, Peter was editor of Tar River Poetry, a national journal that he founded in 1978, and he published several collections of poetry and short stories. Thank you for joining us, Peter.
Thank you. I'm still laughing at Jeff's poem. I'll calm down in just a second. Great sense of humor. This poem that I'm going to read is about, it falls into the imperative mood, or what we call a how-to poem. You can give directions to somebody else on how to do something, but in this particular poem, I'm giving directions to myself. This originally appeared in NCLR. I can't remember exactly when, but it's called Practice. When you open the living room drapes and stand for a while with coffee in hand, watch. Titmice and chickadees fluttering in first light at your feeder on the deck. Then sit on the floor by the glass door, assume the posture, breathe deeply. I don't know if I had it unmuted or you can hear me. Are you hearing me okay?
We can hear you just fine, Peter. That's perfect.
Okay, I'm sorry, I got distracted. Okay, then sit on the floor by the glass door, assume the posture, breathe deeply. Let silence absorb the swish pass of cars. When the winter sun tops the live oaks, moves across the deck and into the room, you need only watch the good tidings of warm light that inch across the rivering grain and the hardwood floor, finally warming your feet. Let it seep into the pores deeply. Feel it flow in your veins. Tell yourself you need no more than what you have. Close your eyes. Visualize the face of the bronze Buddha that sits on your desk. Whisper, home. Then repeat it with a soft final, thanks. I'll read one more. This is a place poem that is set out toward Yellowstone National Park It's entitled Red Foxes at Pahashka Teepee. Pahashka Teepee was Wild Bill Cody's hunting camp. And today you can rent a couple of cabins and spend a few days there, which is what my wife and I did. Lots of great hiking trails. And place brings back memory. In an isolated, no-frills cabin on the banks of the Shoshone, we spent 2 nights on the site of Wild Bill Cody's hunting camp. But unlike Bill, I had no gun to discourage the bears. Make noise when you walk the trails, they told us at the office, and don't go into the woods after dark. As a kid growing up in the country, I read about Cody, Crockett, and Boone. Had a pistol and 2 rifles, hunted rabbits and squirrels for the table, trapped muskrat, fox, and mink for the money, often missing the bus into school. Behind our cabin one morning, I spotted 5 deer and a fawn feeding among the aspens. At first, I thought they were shadows. A few minutes later, my binoculars brought a fox up close, black forelegs and a white-tipped tail. I couldn't stop watching her down on a path by the riverbank. I'd never seen one playfully roll in the dust or stretch out while her 2 kits nipped at each other and tumbled over their mother. Years ago, when I saw a fox, it was held in the jaws of my trap. $5 bounty from the farmer's grange, another $1.50 for the pelt. Who was I? What was I doing? I must have imagined I was Crockett. What stays from one of those mornings is a red fox, bloody foreleg tight in my trap. She was just standing there panting with her tongue out, like my good dog Jonesy on a hot summer day. But now, as I watched, she jumped up, this red fox mom, flanked by her 2 kits. I was dangerous. I didn't deserve this gift of seeing. Something stirred in the bushes beside me. When I looked up again and tried to refocus, they were gone. The riverbank empty. Thank you.
Thank you again, Peter. We will now open the floor up for questions. So if you'd like to pose a question to our poets, our editors, or about submitting to NCLR or anything NCLR related, kindly place those questions in the chat box. I'd also like to invite our panelists at this time to turn on your cameras. Actually, while we're waiting for our guests to pose questions, we can also pose questions to each other. And I'd like to start. I have a question for Michael. I see that you're a man of many talents, right? Professor, photographer, poet. Now we can add musician to that list. And I just want to know why you decided to perform or add accompaniment to your poem recital.
Well, here in Cleveland, I'm part of a performance poetry group, and it's led by Ray McNeath, who's a pretty well-known slam poet. And he has a kind of traveling band that goes with him called Tongue and Groove. And the first time I read a poem with his band, I was hooked. And I thought, wow, this is really, this kind of changes the game for me and makes it much more appealing and interesting, I think, for the audience in some cases, although I'm sure there's some differing opinions about this, but it was really fun and exciting, and it was something that I really enjoyed doing. And I've always been a great admirer of people like Laurie Anderson and a number of other people who do incredible spoken word pieces. So.
Great, thank you for that. Speaking of spoken word poetry, NCLR is working on bringing a spoken word poetry contest together for the summer. So fingers crossed, hopefully we get to work that out. I'm really excited for it. All right, any other questions? Poets, feel free to question each other as well, that's fine.
I just want to say that it was a real pleasure hearing everyone. I loved everybody's work, so yay us, yay NCLR.
I agree.
Thank you for that, Jeff.
Ditto.
And yay North Carolina Humanities.
Yes.
This is a little kind of an aside, but a couple of poems that I've had that y'all have published, Jeff, you've gotten your hands on, and I just want to say how much I appreciated the editing that you did and how helpful it was. I mean, your suggestions just made perfect sense to me, and it's just so nice to have that kind of, okay, we've got your poem, but now here's a way to make it better. So I know you probably don't get a lot of folks saying thank you, but I'm one of them. I really appreciate what you've done.
Nice to hear. Thank you so much, Priscilla.
Thanks for saying that, Priscilla. I've told him before, but it's nice for him to hear directly from the poets how much they appreciate, because so few in creative writing, so few readers have time to give feedback, I know, and it's just one more thing that makes NCLR special.
I agree. If anyone doesn't have a question, I have another question. This time it's posed to Jeff. I just want to know why you had the choice, or why you made the choice to inject humor into your poetry. To me, I think that's something that's rare. I don't feel like a lot of poets tend to inject humor. Poetry is mostly seen as like, well, the poets that I've read are like love poets, I would say. So why humor, which is a really great touch.
Well, thank you. I would like to refer everybody to Catherine Carter's collection, The Swamp Monster at Home, which is just a delightful. I read the whole book on the airplane back to Colorado yesterday. And I mean, she's brilliant in the way she weaves together humor and serious topics too. For me, and I don't know, it's my father's perverse sense of humor, sometimes called in the family the Franklin sense of humor. A lot of the poems in the book are pretty serious, somber things. There's a lot of poems about grief and grieving and loss and failures and the sort of risks of trying to claim a unified identity after many years. So there's a lot of heavy stuff in it, so I try to leaven it. The book's got a whole section called Totem Animals, which is actually a series of goofy animal poems. So they're mostly just rodents and marsupials, and so they're, I hope to try to leaven the serious stuff, and so I tried to put together the collection in a way that allowed those two things to exist side by side. But I appreciate your question, Aaren.
It's no problem. I was laughing here off camera. I'm like, oh, it's a good thing my camera's off because I'm just here kikiing away. So thank you very much for answering my question. Anyone else? Those of you in the audience, feel free to type a question in the chat.
I see in the audience, I want to welcome them and thank them for coming. I see some of our other finalists. I can't see everybody's full name, but I see hello to Teresa Church, whom we've published, and Terry Greco. So I appreciate that. And I'll note that Catherine Carter, whom Jeff mentioned, was the final judge this past year and picked Michael's poem. So thanks for giving her a shout out, Jeff.
She deserves it.
Oh yeah, she's wonderful.
She is. And so is Peter McCook, and it's a real honor to be reading with Peter. He's had a really long and distinguished career, and he's written fiction and poetry too. So I bow to you, Peter, and it's nice to be with you here.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it.
I'm glad you could be here too, Peter.
Thanks.
Good to see you.
I'm having a good day.
Good. Well, Aaren, it's on you.
Right. Well, I guess if that's all, if we don't have any more questions, I would like to say thank you so much to our poets for all of your delightful and superb work. Thank you to our friends at North Carolina Humanities for hosting. And thank you so much to our reviewers for tuning in and supporting NCLR. If you'd like to keep up to date on all of our events and contests, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope to read your poetry soon and receive your subscription orders. We wish you all health and wellness. Good night.
Thank you, Aaren. Thank you, everyone.